Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today while we're heading into this holiday weekend. I appreciate it. So I'll go ahead and introduce myself. If you all haven't met me before, I'm Susan Houssaye. I am the career advisor here at Tulane School of Professional Advancement. And I have a background in recruiting. I did hiring for over 10 years. So hopefully, I have some good tips and tricks to share with you all. When you are working on your resume, there's no time better than the present to get started on your resume because you never know when someone's going to ask you for a copy of it. So it's always good to have it updated, even if you just started at Tulane or in your last semester. It'll just make you feel better to have an updated copy ready to rock whenever you need it. So I am going to share. Typically, I work off of this resume template, and I'll send you all an email with it attached. It's also in the career services portal in Canvas. And we're just going to break it down one line by one line and just kind of talk about the things you should have on here and anything you all have questions about, you're welcome to add them in the chat. And starting with your name. I know this seems easy, but sometimes it's not. So a resume is not a legal document. So whatever you want people to call you at your next job, I want you to put that name on here. So for example, my name is Susan, but let's say I wanted people to call me Susie. I would put that. I would put that up here so that when you're communicating with the recruiter, you're in the interview, everyone calls you Susie. I could even take out Susan and not put, my nickname in parentheses and just go by Susie. The other thing we'll talk about is email. So in the header, I did have a student who was like in one of our creative programs, and she put all of her contact information, including her name, in an effort to be creative at the bottom of her resume. But recruiters are looking at hundreds of resumes per week. And so they want things in a certain order. Sometimes they look at resumes for 8 to 10 seconds. So they want to go boom, 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 and they know where things should be. So up here, I always want your name, your contact information, and they're most likely going to reach out to you via email. So I like to see the email first. And you can make it a hyperlink so they can click on it and it'll take them, open a new email for them. What I don't want to see is two email addresses. I would have some candidates who would email me and they would have two email addresses. And then I was automatically confused. I'm like, where do they want me to email them? So choose one email and it's going to be the one that you use most often. If it's your Tulane email, if it's a Gmail, but I don't want to see anything that's off-putting as an email address. You want it to be, nothing outlandish. And if you need to create a professional email address on Gmail, then go ahead or use your Tulane email. But what's most important is that you're checking that email religiously. I was helping a friend recently and he was interviewing and we're messaging all day. And he, at the end of the day, he was like, oh my gosh, actually, I was like, have you heard back yet about your interview? And he's like, actually, they emailed me this morning about scheduling a second interview, but I just checked my email. And I was like, what? Like, when you're interviewing, you need to be checking that email religiously. Recruiters, it's not a dating game. We're not playing any games. If a recruiter emails you at 9 a.m. and invites you in for a second interview and they ask about your availability, it's okay to write them back at 9:05 a.m. And you want to give them as many options as possible for your availability. Next, you want to include your cell phone number. A lot of people don't have a voicemail set up. And I do recommend, if you are in that interview process, that you do set up a voicemail. I know that may be painful, but there are times where interviews have gotten canceled, and I've had to call candidates to cancel at the last minute. So you do want to have a voicemail set up so that, if a recruiter does call you to schedule an interview, they can leave a message. And so we are into time, I know, where a lot of people don't have them set up, but it is best if you are in that interview process. City and state is fine. We no longer need to include our full home address on our resumes. That's kind of a thing of the past. It's also a bit of a security issue, and no one needs to come to your house or your apartment. They don't need to Google where you live. So just put your city and state. If you are applying for jobs that are remote, you don't even need to put your city and state. That's okay. If you are planning on moving, let's say I'm moving in August to New York City, I can put New York City. If I already have an apartment lined up and I'm going to be there next month, it's okay to put New York City. And the other thing is, I do like a hyperlink here if you do have LinkedIn, a personal website, a portfolio. And when you send your resume out, you are going to send it in a PDF. So it's just going to be one click for the recruiter to click on to take them to your LinkedIn and hyperlink to your email or portfolio. Next, if you're currently in school, you're going to want to have your education first. So we're in reverse chronological order here. If you're in a master's program at Tulane and you completed an undergrad degree somewhere, the undergrad is going to go below. In your education section, you're going to want to include any scholarships, honors, student organizations, anything related to that university that you have participated in. And I've noticed a lot of students recently who are including months and years of when they attended a university, but it's really just, this isn't the correct way to put the dates of when you attended a university. It's more your expected graduation date. And if you have already graduated, then you just put that graduation date, and it signals to the recruiter that's when you graduated. If you put certain months that you were at that university, it looks like you never graduated. It looks like you were just there for those dates, maybe working on a master's, but you didn't complete it. And so any schools that you attended, universities are great ways to make connections when you're networking. So, here in New Orleans, Tulane's going to go a long way. Loyola, all of the universities here, a lot of people who live in New Orleans have attended those schools. You could be interviewing in a different city, and someone's sibling may have gone to one of these schools. So these are great connection pieces. I went to University of Alabama. If I meet someone who went there, we automatically have like this bond. So make sure to highlight the university in bold. I've seen a lot of students recently who are putting their degree above the university, and they're bolding that. And it actually needs to be in the reverse. The recruiter is looking for where you went to school and then your degree. And we're kind of going back to recruiters look at so many resumes, they want things in a certain order. So we want to keep them in a certain order. Under your education is going to be your experience. And if you're in undergrad and you can't fill a page yet, there are some ways that you can fill it. So I do recommend you could add a professional summary up here at the top if you need to fill the page, which would be 3 or 4 sentences about your goals. But if you don't have to include a professional summary, if you have enough experience, education, skills, all of this to fill one page, there is no need to add a professional summary. The professional summary is full sentences, and your cover letter, which we're going to go over next week, is more about having a paragraph and full sentences. Your resumes, just bullets going over highlights of things that you've done. In your experience section, same thing. I've seen a lot of students recently putting their job title first, bolding it, and then the company name. But I want the company name first in bold. The recruiters are looking at where you worked, and they're weighing that just as heavily as your job titles. So let's keep it in this format. This is what they're used to seeing. And when it's backwards, when I see it backwards, it kind of just like plays with my mind, just because I've had to look at thousands of resumes. And so I want things, when I'm looking at resumes quickly, I want them in a certain order. I've seen a trend where a lot of people are taking out the months of when they're working and they're just putting the years. Recruiters do want to see the month and years that you worked at positions. What they're looking for is gaps in employment. So if you just write here that you worked here from 2024 to 2025, it's kind of showing the recruiter that you're trying to like blur the lines with your employment. At least that's how I feel. It's a new thing that I've seen people doing, but we want to go back to the standard. If you do have LinkedIn, you do have to enter the month and the year, and we'll talk about that a little bit, how you want your resume to match your LinkedIn for sure. For your bullets on your resume, you always want to start with an action verb. No abbreviations, spell everything out. I see a lot of acronyms on students' resumes, and a lot of times I don't know what those acronyms stand for. I oversee a lot of programs, and different programs have different acronyms. So when you write something out, make sure, and we could go back up here if you're putting School of Professional Advancement, you would write it out and then put the acronym in parentheses. Then if you mention School of Professional Advancement again in your resume, you can just write the acronym. So once you write out the full name of the acronym and then the acronym in parentheses, that gives you the liberty to just use the acronym going forward. But the recruiter they don't want to take the time to go Google an acronym. It's frustrating when things aren't spelled out, and then it just wastes the recruiter's time looking up an acronym. And sometimes there are multiple acronyms. Multiple ways to, to say a certain acronym, so it's actually not clear. And then no periods at the end of your bullets. Bullets are not complete sentences. And so you want all of that to be consistent. I also have noticed some people are not putting the city and state where they worked. And if you did a job that was remote, so you didn't have a city and state, you can put remote here. But just make sure you have something there so it's all consistent. The key is consistency. For your current job, let's say you worked here May 2025 to present. All of these bullets should be in present tense. So manage, lead, oversee, organize. And I want all of your bullets to start with an action verb. And if you run out of ideas, then check with ChatGPT. I don't want to see action verbs repeated a lot on a resume. I want to see that you have taken the time to come up with different ways to say different things and that you have focused all of your efforts on this one piece of paper. And so any job where you're no longer working, I want all of your verbs to be past tense. And so sometimes you forget, you change your end date here, and then you accidentally leave these in present tense. It can be, if I looked at that, I'd be like, wait, are they still working there? So you definitely want to have someone else read over your resume when you're switching jobs or updating it, just to make sure you are updating everything to the best of your ability and correctly. Over here, we're going to have, so these two things up here are most important. These hold the most weight, your education and your experience. Below that, I like to see things in this order. I mean, skills and certifications, those are kind of interchangeable. If you want to put certifications first and then skills. And I wrote these going across just to save space. Now, let's say you only have 2 jobs and you need to fill a page, then maybe you will take your list down the page. So there are different ways to fill a page. And the other thing is to play with the margins. And so right now I have custom margins set. You can do normal margins. So there's all sorts of ways to make things fit all on one page. Certifications are great to get and include on here. For languages, I see a lot of people put fluent in English, which I think we all assume that everyone's fluent in English. So I don't recommend putting that on there. But if you do speak languages other than English, definitely put those on there. Other things that are connection pieces when you are interviewing is volunteer work. I'm in New Orleans. I volunteer with Son of a Saint, which is why I put that on here. And it's a very well-recognized organization in New Orleans. So chances are I could be in an interview with someone who also volunteers with Son of a Saint. And so those are things that you may not think are important, but it could create a way for someone to remember you after an interview. If they're interviewing 5 candidates for the position you may stand out. The way they may remember you is like, oh yeah, remember y'all were talking about how you both volunteer for Son of a Saint. Maybe our company, you know, should do some events with them or, something like that. So I've seen it happen before, and people underestimate the power of volunteer work being on your resume. So don't shy away from putting that on there. The other thing that I really like as a former recruiter is interest. Resumes can get kind of boring. They're a black and white piece of paper. And as a former recruiter, I always like to see what people do in their spare time. The other thing is, it can take an interview in a different direction. I have that. I like to hike on my resume. I will get in an interview in New Orleans, and people will ask, they're like, oh, wait, you're into hiking? They're like, you live in New Orleans? And I'm like, yeah, actually, there is a great 6 mile trail on the North Shore that I do all the time. And in my thank you email to the people who were interviewing me, I'll send a link to that hike and the coffee shop that I like to go to before the hike. So I've seen interest really catch interviewers' attention, and they're just additional things to talk about in an interview. If you play the piano and the person interviewing you plays the piano, it's going to be memorable. So this is just a typical one-page resume. And I like working in Word. Some people use Google Docs. But I do recommend that you send it out in a PDF if you are applying for jobs. If you send it out in a PDF, it guarantees that it's going to stay on one page. The recruiter opens it, they can't edit it on accident, and different versions of Word can put your resume onto 2 pages. So, sometimes I'm emailing with students and I say, oh, we need to get this all on one page. And they're like, well, on my computer, it looks like it's on one page. Well, I'm on a Dell and they're on a Mac. And so sometimes different computers make things look different. But if you have it in a PDF, it's going to be a clean version with clickable links. We're going to just talk about briefly, if you are interviewing for a federal position, a federal government job through usajobs.gov. They do have a 2-page limit now. The resume is very similar to the resume that I just showed you, but there are a few other things that I've highlighted on here that they want to have included, including hours per week, salary, supervisor, contact information. And one thing that we didn't talk about on a regular resume is you do not need to include your references. You'll have a separate sheet of paper that you can provide to them with your references if you get further into the interview process, and we'll go over that next week. But on here, they do want your supervisor's contact information, and it's okay to say no. They are going to understand that you don't want your current job to know that you're applying for another job. So that's why they say, is it okay to contact the supervisor? And you can say no. So that's why they're asking. So I'll send this out. If anyone's applying for jobs on usajobs.gov, and you can, create one if you are planning on doing that in the future. One more type of resume that I'm going to show you is a more creative one. And this is a student. I took her name off. I thought it was great. And she either created this in Canva or Adobe, I'm not sure, but it's got a little bit more color, a little bit more pop. This to me is someone who is in, I mean, her position, director of creative services. If someone's in marketing, you know, digital design, a very creative field where they're showing off their skills. Someone who is applying for a paralegal position, they don't need to work so hard to create such a creative resume. The other thing is, you know, a lot of times I don't recommend putting color on your resume, but if you are in a creative industry, I just thought that this one was really well done. The colors are subtle, it's not bright, it's easy to read. And the student who did this, I was like, wow, this is impressive. It's not only showing um, you know, a great resume, but also skills at the same time. So this is something that I just wanted to share. I don't want everyone to think that they have to have the plain black and white resume if they are in a more creative industry. And then I know that a lot of people, and I'm going to show you all my resume, a lot of people are like, I cannot fit everything on one page. And you'll see here, I mean, I am going to all the borders of the page. I'm playing with the margins. Um, and so I have fit a lot on here. And you'll see down here, instead of having, you know, education taking up a huge certifications, taking up one line, I've put these things across the line instead of going up and down. And so there is a way to, if sometimes organizations, they have parameters when they're asking you to apply, they'll say, submit a one-page resume. And I was just reading over something that I did for a job when I was working for a tech company. Sometimes it is a test when they're asking you to do certain things to apply. So we had people create usernames and passwords to log into our system to upload their materials, email us, and in the email we wanted the title of the position, we wanted them to include their username in the email, attach a copy of their resume. We had like 4 different things that we wanted them to do when applying for a job. And you could tell a lot about the candidate. Did they follow 1, 2, 3, 4? And a lot of people didn't. And so that was really telling. Do we want to hire this person who can't just do 4 things? If someone did it perfectly, we were like, let's call them in. They can, you know, follow the rules. So if an organization says we want a one-page resume, pay attention to that and get as much as you can on one page. And it's okay. It's just a snapshot. Now, I'll admit, I am at a point where I have a 2-page resume, and that's okay. Everyone says one-page resume, one-page resume. But sometimes you get to a point where you need a 2-page resume. And my opinion on this is, if you're going to have a 2-page resume, I don't want to see a page and a quarter, a page and a half, a page and 3/4. I want to see 2 full pages. And that's why down at the end here, I did my lists long ways instead of across the page. So there's ways to play around. I could have played with the margins differently. Um, so also because I am in school right now, but my experience weighs more heavily than my education. I have my experience above my education. So when you graduate and you get out and you've been working for a year, you want to flip flop those sections. So you want to move your education, your experience to the top, and then have your education below that. So while you're in school, education at the top, then experience. Once you're out, you switch those 2 sections, and then certifications, skills, volunteer work, languages, interests, still always all stay at the bottom. I see a lot of people putting their skills at the top, but the recruiter's looking for skills at the bottom. So they want to see your education and your experience first. So sometimes if I see skills at the top, I gloss over the skills and I miss them because my eyes are going straight for education and experience. And then I'm like, oh wait, where are their skills? So try to keep things in a certain order. One other thing that we can talk about is your LinkedIn. So on here, and we're going to go far more in depth about this, I think in week 3 of this summer boot camp, is you want your LinkedIn to match your resume. And when I was recruiting, I didn't look that hard. I mean, I would glance at people's LinkedIn, and I thought the most important thing was they had a nice professional headshot, a nice background. They weren't just using the background that LinkedIn provided for them, a nice tagline. But I do know recruiters who go through this with a fine-tooth comb, and they look at the resume, they look at the LinkedIn, they make sure the months and the years match. They look at the education. They make sure all these things are matching with the resume. So if you are building a LinkedIn page, you want it to match your resume. You may notice, I don't have all of my bullets from my resume on my LinkedIn, and that's just a personal preference. I am more of a minimalist as a human being, and I just think it looks more clean to not have all of my bullets. I also think no one wants to read all my bullets, but if you are job searching, it can help you to have your bullets on here because recruiters are looking for candidates and they're running searches. And so the more keywords that you have on LinkedIn, the easier it is for them to find you. So if you are in that job search, it will help you to put all of your bullets from your resume on here for searchability, and make sure you are checking your LinkedIn. If someone is reaching out to you about a job on LinkedIn, just make sure you verify that person is real. You can look up their company, see if they're on the company page and things along those lines. And the more things that you do fill out on LinkedIn, if you just click on this jobs tab, you'll see, LinkedIn has picked out some great opportunities for me that match my profile perfectly. So you do want to fill it out and add things to your skills section so that when you come over to this jobs tab, it's going to have picked out jobs that match your resume exactly. And you can apply. The one other thing that I will tell you is don't click apply here. Try and go to the company's website and apply through the company's website. Recruiters will receive your application quicker if you apply through the company website. The company website is attached directly or redirected directly to their emails. If someone, when I was recruiting, if someone applied on our company website, I immediately got an email automatically filled out with the title of the job in the subject line, the candidate's resume attached, as opposed to me having to go check a third-party platform. So try and apply on the company website if you can. Some of these companies will redirect you to their company website, which is nice, especially on Indeed. There's a lot of redirecting to apply on the company website. So that is my overview. So the key to creating a resume is it needs to be perfect. So it's your one shot to get you in the door. You want someone to read over it for you and search for any mistakes, anything little. And sometimes it's hard to work on your own resume. It's easier for someone else to notice something that's incorrect. Of course, I've made mistakes on mine. We've all sent an email where we thought we wrote a word, but we didn't because our brain's moving so fast. So sometimes we miss things. So reach out if I'm your Tulane advisor or you're in a different school at Tulane, have a career advisor here, look over your resume and give you feedback. And hopefully this helps. I will email everyone a copy of this recording, also links to the resume templates that we went over, and hope to see y'all again. So I'll be doing this for 4 weeks on different career topics. Summer's the best time for you to get everything in order. And I don't see any questions in the chat. So I guess that means I answered everything. But have a great holiday weekend and thanks so much for joining.